Hi, I'm Aidan Whitehead and the founder of uNeed, a Coach. And I want to take a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about myself and my background and what inspired me to build uNeed, a Coach. I'm Irish born in Dublin, moved to the States in '93. The economic conditions in Ireland in the early '90s were tough and there wasn't a lot of opportunity, and I was given the great privilege of a visa to come to the States. And I always loved New York, and I came to New York for work. My work took me on Wall Street, and I started on the American Stock Exchange in June 1993 with a small group of brokers who took me under their wing, became very, very good friends of mine, and taught me the ropes. I eventually moved to the New York Stock Exchange and then came up the ranks on Wall Street to manage risk on different desks around the country, in New York and on the West Coast, and back in New York again. I always was very, very driven, very driven as regards my career success, and the opportunities that Wall Street gave me, I took every one of them. And everything I went for, everything I wanted, I got. The inspiration around coaching came to me through working with a lot of individuals over the years, and then getting an opportunity to manage trading teams, and particularly trading teams in very stressful situations. I was very inspired by a lot of people, and I worked with a lot of great leaders who were great mentors to me over the years. But a couple of things happened to me, a couple of poignant things happened to me along the way. As I mentioned, the men who gave me the start on Wall Street, who pretty much took me under their wing, were killed on September 11th. In the World Trade Center, and it was very difficult, obviously, to deal with that. But also gave me a lot of thought on those men who were hardworking, very driven, just like me, went to work that day and never came home. The second poignant thing that happened to me was my brother, very driven, just like me, very much trying to reach a pinnacle in his life where he could start to sit back and kind of enjoy the success that he had made, and get to a financial level where he would be able to enjoy his kids again and have 2 vacations a year. Was diagnosed with a terminal cancer. And when I went back to see him after his diagnosis, and the doctor had given him 6 weeks to live, the first thing he said to me was, "What was it all about?" In that regard, 6 weeks later, when he died, I asked myself that question. What was it all about? Answering that question wasn't easy for me. What was it all about? Here I was in New York, 3 kids, married, everybody's doing good, I'm doing really well, but I don't feel happy. All these things that drove me for years and years to new levels hadn't brought me that fulfillment that I thought I would have had I got to these different levels. Obviously, I had to work through a lot of grief from the friends in the World Trade Center, a lot of grief around my brother, and my father and my mother died soon after. So there was a lot to deal with. But the inspiration around coaching came from working with other people who were trying to better their careers. I got inspired to do some coaching training, and I joined the Neuro Leadership Academy, where I started to learn about the science of our brain and understanding how it works. I learned so much about myself there. The Neuro Leadership Academy was where they brought neuroscientists and leaders together to figure out how to get the best out of their brain. And the education I got there and the training I got there was second to none. I brought that into work with me, into my management career on Wall Street. And I watched traders in very stressful situations. I would watch 2 traders in a very compromised situation when it came to a volatile day on Wall Street. And 2 of them were reacting 2 different ways because they had 2 different brains. But I started to understand it then. That inspired me to work with other executives and build this coaching career on the executive side. And I met individuals, men and women, who had been driven all their life, just like me, and had hit this wall and found that they weren't happy. They had everything. They had financial success, great family, great kids, great job, great opportunity. But they were getting tired because it didn't bring them the happiness, it didn't bring them the joy that they thought they would have at this stage. And I had that experience, and I understood it, and I knew. What brought me to uNeed a Coach and trying to bring this coaching to students has been inspired by executives and people who have lived like I have lived. We've been through it. We understand what it's like in the corporate world. But we also understand that there has to be balance. What are we living for? What are we working for at the end of the day? And the more you find balance, the better you are at what you do. I'm not what I do. And once I started to differentiate myself from what I did, I became better at what I did. I was able to take more risks. I'm able to help other executives, other managers at the conference room table to speak up and realize their full potential and do better and be rewarded for it. But it all came down to finding balance, which is very, very difficult and a big moving target. Bringing uNeed a Coach to students was inspired by an executive who asked me to speak to their son. I didn't know what I was going to come in touch with, but I talked to him and I realized that kids in college are under an awful lot of pressure, peer pressure, parental pressure, and then with the pressures of not knowing what's ahead and trying to place themselves in a proper position, or at least a competitive position, to come out into the world. I can tell you now, from 30 years on Wall Street, from working with executives, high-level executives, from middle management straight up to the C-suite, college kids don't know what's ahead of them when they come to the workforce, when they come out of college. And our job as coaches now, especially coaches who have the experience, and especially the coaches who understand how the mind works, we want to help students and recent graduates be prepared for what's ahead. But the most important part and the reason for their success will be based on them enjoying the journey. Setting goals, organizing what they want, having clear ideas of where they want to go, and then enjoying the journey towards that. If they do that, if they work and take care of themselves along the way, it'll be an amazing journey and a very successful one too. It will lower anxiety and it will lower pressures, especially when they get clarity of what they want. That's our experience. There's so much to learn about ourselves that we don't know because we're caught up in stress and anxiety. Coaches are your silent partner to come to start working with that. Students get a huge benefit by us getting to them early and getting them prepared for what's ahead. It's much easier to work with a student, get them fully rounded as they come into the corporate world, than to meet an executive who has 20 years in the business and to talk to him and find that he's not fulfilled and he's not happy. And he needs to make huge changes in his life to balance it out. We want to work with students so they don't get to that stage, so they don't get so driven that they get lost along the way. And all of a sudden at 35, 40 years old, they realize they've made the wrong decisions, or they've made the decisions based on influences, outside influences, and stuff that they didn't even realize, unconscious ideas that they thought would take them to a certain level. It is my greatest privilege to coach executives and to watch them turn their life around. Not that it changes their success, it just changes their fulfillment and how happy they become in what they do. Everything changes when they change, when they start to take care of themselves and they start to put everything in balance. It's difficult as an executive. It's difficult when times there's a lot of pressure on you. The absolute privilege of watching students implement some wellness, implement some balance, and start to grow and learn about themselves is absolutely inspiring. As they turn around, they start to take on life with great joy and great passion, but obviously loving the adventure along the way. but with a coach alongside them to help them to see things as they are and not to get too attached to results. That all drives great success. And it's a huge inspiration to me and a great privilege to be part of that journey in developing young people for what's ahead of them. It's tough out there. It's tough in the corporate world. But all these students that I've worked with, all these students that we're connected with, are very capable of doing it. They just don't know it.